I won't take much of your time, but hardly take 45 minutes so that you guys can have your lunch, right? And then come and doze off, right? हाँ तुम भी हो यहाँ पे, हाँ माइक बीच में लगाओ. All right. So this year, all right, fair enough here, please. So this year, if I talk about Indian economy, the weightage increased little bit. In the prelims, the weightage had reduced. In prelims, every year we get around 18 to 20 questions from Indian economy. This year we got around 15. But if we talk about mains exam, every year the weightage is around 100 marks, 90 to 100 marks. But this year, if we include questions from GS1, GS2 and GS3, the total number of questions from economy, it has come to around 130, 140 marks. That is like one half of one complete paper. So the number of questions increased, the weightage increased. Fair enough? But the good thing is, the questions difficulty level, reduced. Most of the questions were from existing themes. There have been certain themes which UPSC follows for Indian economy. So the questions were from those themes. There was hardly any surprise question. That is a good thing about it. Whatever has been mentioned in the syllabus, the questions were as per those lines, I would say. So before we start discussion of the question paper, first let me tell you how do we approach the questions. That's more important, because these questions, they may be repeated in future, they may not be repeated in future. There are chances they won't be repeated. But what is important is the pattern will be repeated. And what is important is you need to know how to answer the questions when you will be appearing next year or next to next year. That's more important. So as since morning you have been, it's like probably your third session if I'm not wrong, ethics, history and economy, right? So till now more or less you would be aware that answer has three parts: intro, body, conclusion, right? You would be aware about that. That's the structure, right? If I talk about economy, then in the intro part, you can focus on two things. First is, you can either write a definition. So if the question is about food processing industries, you can give the definition of what food processing industries is. If the question is about land reforms, you can give a definition of land reforms. If the question is about land ceiling, you can give the definition of land ceiling. But obviously there would be certain questions for which we cannot give a definition. For example, if I talk about this question, so which says faster economic growth requires increased share of manufacturing sector, especially from MSME sector. And in this context, we need to tell, what are the policy initiatives taken by the government to help MSME sector. The word limit is 150, right? The word limit is 150. Introduction has to be kept to around 10 to 15 words. Because whatever the maximum number of marks a question has, the introduction has to be of around 10% of the maximum words. So if you know maximum words are 150, introduction has to be of around 15 words. And if it is 15 words, it is one sentence. Cannot be more than that. You are writing more than one sentence in intro, you are eating up the words of the body. Similarly, the way forward, which will be there at the end, that should also be of just one sentence. Again, 10 to 15 words. Those who have been practicing answer writing, they would be knowing it that if we write 150 words for a 150 worded question and if we write 250 words for a 250 worded answer, we are not going to complete the answer. We are not going to complete the question paper. So if the question is of 150 words, keep yourself restricted to 120 to 130 words. इसके beyond नहीं लिखना. Even if you have to cut down on the content, keep it to 120 to 130. Because if you do not write one point in one answer, which helps you to reduce the number of words by 10-20, it may be hurting you. It may be hurting you by say 0.25 marks. But if you write like, if you save this 20 words for 18 questions, you are sparing 360 words. That is actually helping you to attempt 2 more questions. So either you attempt 18 questions of 250 marks, 250 words, 150 words, or you attempt 20 questions with 120 words and 220 words. Ultimate objective is we need to complete the question paper. That's objective. It's a crime, it's a sin if we do not complete it. So therefore, I would suggest for Indian economy that you keep yourself restricted to 120 to 130 for a 150 word answer and say 220 to around 230 for a 250 worded answer. Fair enough? So hence I come to this part which says, in this question I cannot give a definition of MSME. Your definition of MSM, the definition is huge. I cannot give the definition ki, depending upon this much of investment, this much of turnover, this is the definition of micro, small and medium enterprise as was given in Atmanirbhar Bharat package. You understood that? So certain questions would be there in which we cannot give introduction, we cannot give definition. Here comes to a rescue. Facts. So a lot of students they ask, should we remember facts for Indian economy? Yes, you should remember facts for Indian economy. Because facts will be helping, facts will be coming to your rescue for the introduction part. At the same time, if you look at the answer sheets of Ishita Kishore or Shruti Sharma, both rank 1. One thing which was common in their answers is their answers had lot of facts. Facts, examples. Lot of facts, lot of examples, lot of committee names. So remember one thing, whenever you are writing any point for Indian economy, any challenge, any way forward, any positive, negative, you should always substantiate it with an example, with a fact. And these facts, you are going to get it from economic survey. And that's the importance of economic survey. Earlier in the trend of 2016, 17, 18, 19 even, in those 4 years, we used to get direct questions from economic survey. But that time, economic survey was of 2 volumes, volume 1, volume 2. Volume 2 would be about statistics of complete Indian economy and volume 1 would be reforms. So this Jan Dhan Aadhaar mobile, JAM Trinity, it was earlier suggested by one of the economic surveys. Assemble in India, suggested by an earlier economic survey. Uday scheme, suggested by an economic survey. So whatever reforms which we are seeing now, they have been earlier recommended by economic surveys. But nowadays we do not have two economic surveys, we do not have two volumes, we only have one volume, and that is just about statistics. So therefore direct questions from economic survey has stopped. So next year when you will be writing mains, stop mugging up economic survey. You should know certain facts about each and every chapter. So if it is a BOP chapter or a fiscal policy or a monetary policy or a banking chapter or agriculture chapter, you should have certain facts with you, so that if you do not have anything, you can write these facts in the introduction part. Fair enough? Second thing is, your answer should consist of a lot of flowcharts. Again, if you look at toppers copies, the copies would be consisting of lot of flowcharts. For example, I will tell you one thing. Each one of you would be having some favorite curry, some favorite vegetable. So, do you like chole bhature? So, you like chole bhature. Suppose chole bhature is your favorite dish. But then your mother starts feeding you chole bhature in the breakfast, in the lunch, in the dinner, next morning, breakfast, lunch, dinner, next morning, breakfast, lunch, dinner. For how many days can you bear it? One fine day you will say, Mummy, bus. Now thing is, if you write the answers in a similar way, all 20 answers in a similar way, it will be a monotonous way of answering the questions. Whether it is point form or paragraph form, it will be a monotonous way of answering the questions. Hence, use a lot number of flowcharts in your answers. The flowcharts can be any type of flowcharts. The flowcharts can be just like a simple flowchart. That these are the advantages. So if I have to tell you the advantages of MSMEs, we'll be just saying positives or say advantages of MSMEs. This is one way of putting it. Other way of putting it is like, you can do it like this. Advantages of MSMEs. Advantages of MSMEs. Other way of putting it like, put in center advantages of MSMEs and do it like this. Other way of putting in advantages is, suppose this is your answer sheet. Have a like this, positives of MSMEs, and write it like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Multiple ways to put in the same thing. Or you can use the traditional way. Positives of MSMEs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 point. Multiple ways hai. Your answer should show a diversity to the evaluator. I hope things are clear. Fair enough. Let's continue. Fair enough. So question is that faster economic growth, it requires increased share of manufacturing sector in GDP, particularly of MSMEs. Comment on the present policies of the government in this regard. First of all, we need to know why this question has been asked. Because this question of MSMEs, it is a repeated theme. Not exactly MSMEs, but inclusive growth and employment generation and jobless growth, they have been a regular theme of UPSC. So UPSC has been asking, and in this way they have asked question about MSME. So first thing is, you need to understand what the question is. Question kya kehta hai? Question says that increase share of manufacturing in GDP is required for economic growth. Second, increase share of MSME in manufacturing is required for economic growth. So we need to think along these lines only. One thing which is important about UPSC is, one thing which you did in your college exams, university exam, is that whatever would be the question, you would be writing whatever you knew. It's quite possible there was a question in the exam and you're not aware about exact answer. So what would you do? You would start writing whatever you know. And it is the responsibility of the evaluator to find out the exact answer from your answer. And the more you write, the more marks you get. The more number of sheets you fill in, the more marks you get. That's how the trend has been. UPSC, we do not follow this trend. UPSC, it is, you write what is asked. You do not write what you know. So therefore, understanding the question is very important. Therefore, when every topper says, read the question multiple times, उसका मतलब ये नहीं कि बार बार यही पढ़ते रहो, नहीं. बार बार पढ़ने का मतलब है कि समझो. What is the examiner trying to ask? Is he even asking something in between the lines? For example, in this question, they haven't even asked, write down the advantages or benefits of MSMEs. They haven't talked about this. उन्होंने क्या बोला कि comment on the present policies of the government in this regard. We just cannot start the answer that, these are the policies, government policies for encouraging MSMEs, or these are the policies for encouraging manufacturing. Because उसने ये भी बोला है कि faster economic growth requires increased share of manufacturing sector in GDP. ये भी उसने बोला है. Otherwise, he could have simply asked, write down government policies for encouraging MSME sector. Why did he start with the context? The context was, faster economic growth requires increased share of manufacturing sector in GDP. Hence, we need to tell that how increased manufacturing in GDP would lead to economic growth and how increased presence of MSME would lead to economic growth. ये दोनों बातें बतानी है. सिर्फ ये नहीं बताना कि how increase in manufacturing contribution would lead to economic growth. Not only this, we also have to tell how MSME is contributing to this. So now, once you have understood what is to be asked, then you can easily write it. Because you know positives of MSMEs, right? Once you know what is to be written, then you can start writing. So, how do we start this? ये ऊपर कैसे जाएगा? ये नीचे आएगा ना? So you can start the answer by certain facts that MSMEs, MSMEs, how much is manufacturing contributing to GDP of India? Okay, how much industrial sector contributes to GDP of India? तुक्का ही मार दो. Industrial, अच्छा पहली बात, what exactly is industrial sector? Or what exactly is secondary sector? Secondary sector includes construction and manufacturing. So the secondary sector, it contributes around 26% to GDP. Manufacturing sector contributes 16% to GDP. And that has been the trend in the last 10 years. 16% to GDP. We brought a national manufacturing policy in the year 2011. And that time contribution of manufacturing sector to GDP was around, say, somewhere around 16%. That time also it was 16%. Even after 12 years from national manufacturing policy, it is still 16%. So my question to you guys is, if manufacturing sector is contributing 16% to GDP, how can MSMEs contribute 30% to GDP? I hope you have understood the question. Manufacturing sector contribute करता है 16% to GDP के अंदर, right? So how can MSMEs contribute 30% to GDP of India? Because MSMEs are not only present in manufacturing sector, they are also present in services sector. Don't you think Shubhra Ranjan IS is a MSME? It is. All those shops in the Oran market, they are MSMEs. Right? So MSMEs, whether it is manufacturing sector MSME or it is services sector MSME, we take them both of them are contributing 30% to India's GDP, 45% to manufacturing production, and employ approximately 10 crore people. Three facts we remember about MSME, put them in the introduction. Introduction is done and dusted. 15 words. Right? Because when we start writing the answer, the confusion is, when we start writing the answer, first confusion is how to start. And then the problem is, once we start, we do not know how to land, how to get out of this. Multiple times we write introduction of one page, फिर दिमाग में आता है भाई body भी लिखनी है. It happens. So first is, keep yourself limited to one word, write facts, that's it. The next thing is, we have to tell how manufacturing sector and MSME sector can contribute to economic growth. That was the question, right? So here we tell they contribute in job creation. So if we have job creation, how does it lead to economic growth? Because if we have job creation, obviously the people who are earning, that is getting added to GDP. At the same time, when there is job creation, there is a creation of demand in the economy. And this creation of demand in the economy would lead to production from other sectors of the economy also. So first advantage or first way how MSME contribute to the growth is by going for job creation. Here again we write a fact, employs around 10 to 11 crore people and contribute to around 45% of total workforce in manufacturing sector. Right? Other advantage is it will be reducing unemployment and will be helping us get डेमोग्राफिक डिविडेंड. कीवर्ड्स लिखने जरूरी हैं. आई होप यू आर एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड द कीवर्ड्स. डेमोग्राफिक डिविडेंड एक कीवर्ड है, राइट? अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट एक कीवर्ड है, राइट? देन दे ऑल्सो कंट्रीब्यूट टू एक्सपोर्ट्स ऑफ इंडिया. 45% of Indian exports are coming from MSMEs. If we increase the exports, don't you think the current account deficit would reduce, the BOP balance would reduce, the BOP balance would become would be like the BOP would become more surplus, our forex reserve would increase, and then if we export more, don't you think rupee would appreciate? Rupee appreciates, crude oil price reduces. So we can relate it like this, that it will be helping in exports also. At the same time, it will be helping in fostering innovation, because most of the innovation it happens in manufacturing sector. And this innovation, it actually spurs or it actually moves to other segments of the economy also. Then, so now first part is, we have told how MSMEs can contribute to economic growth. How can they do it? It means they are not doing it. That's what the question is, right? So now we have to tell, there has to be a connecting sentence, that though MSMEs have huge advantages to the economy, they are not able to fully reap their potential because of certain challenges. समझे मैं क्या बोला? We cannot just say कि positives of MSMEs, then challenges of MSMEs. They haven't asked it. I hope you're able to understand this. We have to tell them कि हाँ इनके advantages हैं, but ये advantages ये नहीं ला पा रहे हैं. क्यों नहीं ला पा रहे? Because they have certain challenges with it, and these are those challenges. भूल जाता हूं मैं. I'm not going to discuss these challenges. I hope you know them. You know them? I hope you're not here for a foundation course seminar. एमएसएमई के चैलेंजेस क्या पता है, राइट? तो मैं फालतू में ज्ञान नहीं बांटूंगा कि ये एमएसएमई के चैलेंजेस है, कर लेना भाई खुद। ऑब्वियसली इट्स नॉट अ नॉलेज ट्रांसफर का सेशन नहीं है, राइट? ये बात सही है ना यार? द वे फ्यू ऑफ गाइस सेड, सही बात है, आई थॉट आई वाज सिटिंग इन अ पंचायत रूम, कि हाँ भाई ऐसे करना, सही बात है, सही बात। क्या से जाएगा? एंड आई एम अ कंप्यूटर इंजीनियर। हंसने क्या बात है? A lot of you would be electrical engineers, and if I ask them to repair a tube light, or I ask them to repair a fan, they won't be able to do it. And that actually tells, that's actually problem with India's demography, right? Skill nahi hai hamare paas. Anyways, let's continue. So we have to tell the policy of the government to boost manufacturing and MSME. Simple बोल देंगे भाई. In the year 2020 we brought आत्मनिर्भर भारत पैकेज। इसमें क्या थे? 3-4 बातें थी। क्या क्या बातें थी? इट वाज लाइक, फर्स्ट वी हैव टू इंक्रीज पब्लिक प्रोक्योरमेंट फ्रॉम डोमेस्टिक कंपनीज। सेकेंड, वी नीड टू प्रोवाइड देम कोलेटरल फ्री लोन्स। And then we revise the definition of MSMEs to increase investment. You won't be able to write these three points. You won't have time, you won't have space. So just write, under Atmanirbhar Bharat package, reforms were brought to give collateral free loans to MSMEs and increase investment in MSMEs. That's it. One sentence. Other point would be like, we have brought, idhar bhi jao, idhar. Someone needs a part-time job. गड़बड़ नहीं है, इसको बोलते हैं नाच ना जाने। गुड। नेक्स्ट इज प्रोडक्शन लिंक्ड इंसेंटिव। लुक, द मार्क्स which we'll be getting in these answers is based on keywords. So first we wrote Atmanirbhar Bharat package, collateral free loans and more procurement from domestic companies. Then we come to the next point and we say production linked incentive scheme, and we give a fact that 1.97 lakh crore rupees have been given or will be given as production linked incentive schemes for encouraging certain MSMEs, especially in textile and leather sector. Look, जो PLI आया था, PLI came for white goods, PLI came for semiconductors, PLI came for mobile components, right? But PLI for leather and textile is important. क्यों? leather और textile में ऐसी क्या खास बात है? Exactly, they are labor intensive companies. तो अपने को एम्प्लॉयमेंट भी जनरेट करना है, डिमांड भी क्रिएट करनी है, राइट? सो देयरफॉर revising this thing, PLI to especially to just write PLI scheme to 14 key sectors, funding of 1.97 lakh crore rupees, and more focus on leather and textile industries. That's it. Next, national manufacturing policy we got in 2011-12. Just remember कि भाई growth rate, manufacturing GDP contribution had to come from 16% to 25%. It is still 16%. That's a different thing. Then Make in India initiative to increase the investment in manufacturing. ECGLS, emergency credit line guarantee scheme, क्या होती है भाई ये? क्रेडिट गारंटी क्या होता है? Credit guarantee is someone is taking a guarantee for the credit given by the bank. For example, if I am a MSME and I go to a bank to take a loan, bank would say मैं loan नहीं देता. What's the guarantee that you are going to return me money? In that case, the government takes guarantee that if a MSME is not returning a loan to a bank, in that case the government would be returning that amount to the bank. That is called ECGLS, Emergency Credit Line Guarantee Scheme, where this was given to around 1.3 million MSMEs. And the funding has been increased to 5 lakh crore rupees. Is it okay? Wow, your yes is giving me a huge confidence. RAM program, you can read about it. For discussion, we can leave it. Okay? Then you can say Mudra loans, collateral free loans. Then there were certain sector specific programs also for footwear and leather development. Then we have FAME India scheme for encouraging manufacturing of electric vehicles. And then we have PM Mitra scheme for boosting FDI in textile sectors. ये सुबह से ऐसे चल रहा है. ठीक है, कोई चक्कर नहीं आ रहा. Tell me one thing. What do you write in? Look, last paragraph. I'll tell you one thing. समझो एक बात यार ना. Last paragraph of every answer. What do we say it? We say conclusion, right? And in conclusion, what do we write? But it has to be either conclusion or a way forward, right? The old method, आम जिंदगी क्या थी कि conclusion के अंदर will give suggestions, or whatever has been paraphrased in the question or whatever you have written above will consolidate. But what you will be doing is just one paragraph above the way forward. Write suggestions. Do not write suggestions in way forward. Write suggestions in one sentence just above the way forward paragraph. And in way forward paragraph, try to relate the topic with SDG, with Sustainable Development Goals. For example, if I talk about this, don't you think MSMEs, they will be helping us in achieving SDG goal number 1, which is no poverty. At the same time, if we focus on MSMEs, we will be able to achieve SDG goal number 5, that is gender equality also. Because around 20% of workers in MSMEs are women. So if we focus on encouraging women, in one way we are encouraging women employment also. So we will be able to get gender equality. So one thing which you can do is memorize all sustainable development goals and try to relate your answer with that sustainable development goal. I hope that's okay, right? Let's move to next question, which is about the status of digitalization in the economy, and examine the problems faced in this regard and suggest improvements. तो भाई क्वेश्चन के हैं 3 पार्ट. कौन कौन से 3 पार्ट? स्टेटस ऑफ डिजिटलाइजेशन इन द इंडियन इकोनॉमी, वी नीड टू टेल द स्टेटस. सेकंड पार्ट क्या है? द प्रॉब्लम फेस्ड. एंड थर्ड पार्ट इज सजेस्ट इंप्रूवमेंट्स. अब एक बात समझो, I would hardly take 10 minutes more. ठीक है, then you can go and have your lunch. ठीक है, I would just take 10 more minutes. ठीक है. Look, this is a question of 150 words. We cannot write detail or explanation of each and every point. What we need to do is we need to write more number of points. Similarly, if we talk about status of digitalization in the economy, what do we write in introduction? What can we write in introduction? We cannot write definition of digitalization, right? That will be like a sort of old type of introduction. Here comes to a rescue the facts. We can say the active mobile users in India, or say I would say the active internet users in India are around 70 crores. Or we can tell about teledensity in the country, that we have around more than 100% teledensity in urban areas and we have around 70% teledensity in the rural areas. That's a good way to start a question on digitalization. And then we come on to, the status of digitalization. Compartmentalizing the answer into multiple sectors will be helping you. So first is, we need to tell about digital infrastructure. So we'll say in digitalization case, the digital infrastructure has increased. We have more number of mobile users, we have more number of internet users. All right, then second would be about digital payments, that how payments through UPI has increased. Again, a fact should be there that in 2022, that about $126 trillion, 126 trillion rupees worth of transactions were done in digital payments in India. Next, we will talk about e-governance, where like for every other thing we have got a portal, whether it is an income tax portal or it is a GEM portal or it is like a UPSC portal. For everything we have a government portal. Then we will talk about digitalization ke andar, that whatever the startups are coming in India, most of them are in digital field only. So we'll be telling about edtech, we'll be telling about health tech, e-commerce, fintech, right? This will be helping you. You can give examples also, examples of Policy Bazaar you can give over here. You can give example of Tata 1mg, फिर वो Farm Easy, right? Their example of digitalization. Then there is a help in transport technology too, because in transport technology, don't you think now Paytm has been connected to the RFID tag or fast tag, right? That's example. Then we have agriculture sector digitalization, where we can talk about e-NAM, right? And then last will be one open network for digital commerce, where we are providing a sort of UPI benefit to democratize e-commerce in India. This is the status of digitalization in India. Fair enough. Then we come on to problems faced by digitalization. यहाँ पर आप लोग ज्ञान दे सकते हैं. The first portion of the question was where you had to know certain things. The second part of the question, like what are the challenges faced? Here you can use your own mind. Here you can use your own innovation. So first problem is we have a digital divide. That in the digital divide it can be seen at multiple ways, in multiple domains. First, digital divide, it is present across rural and urban areas. We need to tell how many people of rural areas use internet. It's 31%, and 67% of population in urban areas uses internet. Then comes the second part, gender divide. How many women are using internet? How many men are using internet? Just 50 to 58%. 58% of male are internet users, 37%, 42% of women are internet users. Then other problem is issue of affordability. People in rural areas, they do not have such a high income that they can afford that the 777 plan of Jio or Airtel. Then lack of awareness. Then you go to small cities. Here you go to anyone, they'll be accepting Paytm. You go to small cities, they won't be accepting Paytm. वहाँ पर है नहीं system, so there is a lack of awareness among small merchants about digital payments. Then there is problem of digital literacy. How more important is actually we have digital financial illiteracy. People know how to operate YouTube. People know how to operate Paytm. But they do not know how to operate bank account, use of OTP, use of ATM cards. So what is more important is we have a digital financial illiteracy. We do not as such suffer from that much of digital illiteracy, but still it says that 25% of Indian population is still digitally illiterate. And other problem is that digital services are not available in local languages. Then issues of cyber security. You would have regularly heard that how passwords from websites, passwords from Zomato, passwords from Uber, Ola, they have been compromised. So cyber security is the issue, and cyber fraud is also an issue, right? Then infrastructure deficiency. Infrastructure deficiencies, you would have seen that in spite of Jio rolling 5G, Airtel rolling 5G, there are certain parts in a city where we do not even have basic mobile connection. There would be call drops even in today's circumstances. Why so? Because the demand of digital infrastructure is much more than the availability of digital infrastructure. So there's always a lag. So this drawback is there, that there is an infrastructure deficiency, digital infrastructure deficiency is there. And then cash economy and tax evasion. You go to Chandni Chowk, no one accepts Paytm over there. Everyone accepts cash because cash it helps people in tax evasion, right? So that's another challenge, cash economy and tax evasion. Other challenge is monopoly of tech giants. We already have tech giants like Amazon, Google, Flipkart. It's very difficult to enter in the system, right? Data privacy and security concerned, as I discussed earlier. And then other issue is internet disruptions during curfews, whether it is Manipur, Jammu Kashmir, Punjab. Most of the time we see internet disruption during curfews. So when there is internet disruption, don't you think it will be hurting the entrepreneurs in those areas? They cannot accept payments, they cannot even take online orders. So it's a drawback to them also. And then data localization. The issue was brought earlier. I hope you know what is data localization. We tried for data localization, could not succeed in it, right? And then we talk about next part, which is suggestions for improvement, right? One way of writing suggestion is write opposite of whatever we wrote in the challenges. But that is like repetitive. We need to be innovative over here, right? So one thing which they are saying is we can bridge the digital divide. That's like one point. Then we should have a data privacy legislation, right? A strong data privacy legislation should be there. Government should enhance cybersecurity measures. We need to recruit more people for cybersecurity. NGOs should come and they should be making people aware about cybersecurity. Workshops should be conducted for cybersecurity, right? Then digital literacy initiatives should increase. How can digital literacy initiatives be increased? Only when we provide these initiatives in local languages. You would have seen your parents, you have seen your grandparents, your relatives. Do they read Indian Express, Hindustan Times, Times of India? Dainik Jagran, Amar Ujala. So don't you think it is better to provide this information in local languages, then only they understand about it. So digital literacy को अगर कम करना है, we need to provide this digital literacy information in local languages. And then we come to the way forward. Again, we connect it to sustainable development goal, that digitalization is not a matter of choice, but we have to adopt it. Because if we have to adopt SDG goal number 9, which talks about building a resilient infrastructure, and if we have to achieve the inclusive economic growth, sustainable development goal number 8, we will be able to achieve, digitalization is going to help us in this case. Fair enough? I'll be restricting myself to here only. I have a commitment, I need to go out of station. So I'll be restricting myself to 2 p.m. 2 p.m. Okay? See you. I hope you liked it.